Hi, welcome to the very first episode of Candid Catholics, in which we are talking about issues and world events that are going on within our Catholic Church. And of course, season one is about the biggest thing going on in the church, conclaves and cardinals. We are recording this and beginning our very first episode 2 days before the conclave to replace Pope Francis begins. My name is Father Tom Gibbons. I am with Paul's Productions and a filmmaker here in Los Angeles. And our co-host is...
I'm Maggie McKay, broadcaster and podcaster. Happy to be here and to learn a lot from Father Gibbons and from a lot of the different guests we're going to have. Sometimes we're going to have guests. Sometimes it's just going to be the two of us. But we know each other from St. Paul the Apostle Church in LA. And I'm looking forward to our podcast, Candid Catholics. And it should be your go-to, especially this week with the conclave coming up. We have some very informative guests. So we're going to be your one-stop shop for sure for this week of the conclave. So you know what's going on, because a lot of people have questions and there's so much to it. And it is fascinating whether you're Catholic or not.
It's 2005, and Pope Benedict XVI just did what no pope had done in 600 years. He resigned his office. And when he did, they needed to have a conclave in order to elect a new pope. When Archbishop Mario Bergoglio got on the plane from Buenos Aires to fly to Rome to participate in the conclave, he had no idea that that would be the last time he would ever set foot in Argentina, his homeland. He had a round-trip ticket, but during the conclave, even though he came in second in the previous conclave, no one really expected him to walk out onto the balcony of St. Peter's Circle a few days later. But he gave a talk when the Cardinals were given about the need of the church to reach out, to not look as inward, but to reach out to the margins. And a few days later, Mario Bergoglio was elected pope. Immediately after the election, one of his fellow cardinals whispered in his ear, "Don't forget the poor." And with that statement, he chose his name, Francis. So why are we doing this, Maggie? Why are we doing this?
Because we agreed that it was important to have a program to address Catholic issues and questions of the day. And so we decided to make it happen.
Yeah, no, I mean, I know for me, I was just getting all these questions and all these like, of course, the first question is, who's the new pope going to be? And it's just like, nobody knows who the new pope's going to be. We're still unpacking this. We have this idea that the election of a new pope we have in our American minds anyway, the idea of like a presidential election every 4 years, and then there's primaries and, the horse races and polls. And that is not how the Vatican works. The Vatican has its own way of doing things. And a lot of people are very interested in that. So we thought this would be a great opportunity to unpack that.
Right.
And so I think a good place for us to start is to review the legacy of Pope Francis. What did people understand about him? What did people feel about him? What did people get right about Pope Francis? What did people not get wrong about Pope Francis? And just to kind of take some time to review that. And I know when I was thinking about, who would be a good person to talk to that would really be able to sum up a lot of Pope Francis's papacy, one of the first names that came to my mind is Evgeny Afineevsky. Evgeny Afineevsky is someone that I met here in Los Angeles over the last couple of years. He's a filmmaker. I'm at Paul's Productions, so I've been doing some filmmaking myself, and he produced a film about Pope Francis in 2021 entitled Francesco. I watched it last night, and I forgot how moving it is and what a beautiful summary it is of Pope Francis's life. And in Francesco, he follows Pope Francis in the midst of a very significant part of his papacy. And along the way, he became very close friends with Pope Francis, staying in touch with him long after the movie came out. And so Evgeny is going to have a lot of great things to share with us and unpack a lot of things that I think go beyond the headlines and kind of help us understand, like, where are we as a church? where are we as a world, as we both mourn this moral leader, as we as Catholics mourn our Holy Father, but as we also just look forward to what comes next. So when we started this podcast, we knew that we had to start at the very beginning as to where we are now. And where we are now as a church, we're mourning the loss of Pope Francis. And as the Cardinals gather together in Rome to choose a new successor, we also needed to take a moment, as so many people have done, to kind of figure out where we are as a church and where we are with the loss of Pope Francis, not only for ourselves as a church, but also just as a world moral leader. And I've been receiving so many phone calls from people who are really super uber Catholics and people, friends of mine who are atheists. And so, as we're kind of unpacking where we are as a church now, Evgeny was one of the first people I thought we need to talk to, just because I think he knew Pope Francis so well for the making of this project. He got to know him much better than I did. People have been asking me, I knew Pope Francis, and it's like, well, I got a picture with him one time at the Vatican, and he was very nice. He asked me to pray for him, and then he had other meetings to go to. But Evgeny had just so much experience through making this film. They kept in touch. They remained friends, and so it's a loss. Pope Francis is a loss for so many of us, but I know how personal, extra personal the loss is for Evgeny. So we are just so happy to have him with us. I know, Maggie, you watched the film yesterday,
I did.
and can you just share your reflections on it?
Oh my gosh, it was so powerful. I was so happy to learn about it because I did not see it when it first came out. But I learned so much, Evgeny. I mean, there were things I did not even know were going on in the world. And there was a lot of Kleenex used for sure because there were some tearful moments. But I saw a whole nother side of the Pope that I never knew about. And just globally, all the things going on in the world and how much he traveled to the far reaches of the globe, not like the popular places, but where the media isn't even present. So it was quite powerful.
But I will add to that that he traveled not often to the places where the biggest population of the Catholic world. He was traveling to the places where the people need voice. And he, with the help of the media pool that was following him to all these places, was bringing the spotlight and was raising these issues to the top of the headlines, helping to people to bring it up. And as the matter of fact, in this movie, I try to show not the biography of the Pope, but the truer aspects of our society, what we created as the sinners, and him as the humble servant of the people, not just the Catholic world, but just people, ordinary people. Him trying to literally navigate us as the moral compass of today's world, navigate us towards the solutions, towards the humanity that we forgot we forgot it, and to navigate us in the right direction.
How did you originally meet him?
In 2014, I finished movie about Ukrainian revolution. And then when it was released in 15, I saw the effect of my movie. Then I went to Syria and I told the story of the Syrian people. And I saw that there is so many issues in this world: conflict, climate change, refugee crisis, issues between different faiths, between different religions, uh, not acceptance of LGBTQ. I saw the amount of the issues that we creating with our daily activity more and more and more. And I was thinking that if as a filmmaker, I can able to take not just one story like Syria or Ukraine, but take something on a much more global scale and something that have 20, 30 stories together, put it through one thread, and not just to show it as the BS, but to give hope to humanity, to human family, and to have somebody who can connect all these dots together and show us the path. That will be a great idea. And that idea brought me to Pope Francis. that idea to make a movie around him brought me in 2018, at the beginning of 2018, to Vatican. And it was exactly in time when the whole big scandal of the Catholic Church sexual abuse happens in Chile, Father Tom. And Holy Father was actually very reactive in Chile, because in the beginning he literally not went with the right direction, but he went very different him as the Latino who wanted evidence. And it was interesting to observe all this situation going in front of my eyes. Literally next a few months after, I met Juan Carlos Cruz and the guys. Then I met Archbishop Cicluna, who was doing an investigation.
And who was Juan Carlos Cruz? Can you talk about that story a little bit?
Juan Carlos Cruz was one of the leading victims of sexual abuse from Chile, who was also heavily abused by Father Caradima. And Juan Carlos Cruz actually today, with the help and with the respect of Pope Francis, is on one of the commissions inside of the church, inside of the Vatican, for protection of minors. So again, it was interesting to observe so many interesting stories that were unfolding in front of me, so many important stories. And that's how it all started. Of course, Vatican, who here to protect the Pope, guard the Pope, of course, not exactly gave me immediately keys from the Basilica and from Santa Marta. They said, we know who you are, start to do the project. And by the way, it was immediately when I arrived to Vatican, I had a meeting with Monsignor Dario Vigano, who was the prefect of Dicastery of Communications by this time, who just finished a movie with Wim Wenders. And he said, we just finished the movie, but you have different approach, just start, and we will see through the process if we can get you to the Pope, if it will be interest of Pope, and so on, so on, so on.
And that Wim Wenders movie, I mean, can you talk a little bit about that? Because I remember that movie got a fair amount of press when it came out. And can you just remind us, what was significant about that movie?
I think that was the first movie where was on a camera, looking in the camera and doing the interview. I think that was the significance, because I know that Wim was using a specific technique, putting Pope in front of the camera, and it's a specific technique. And again, I learned later that Pope not exactly was a big fan of all this, because he literally said to me, Evgeny, at certain point in time, he said to me, I'm not a star. I am a priest, and I'd rather be on the front lines of this world helping people than I will be in front of the camera. So that's even more enforced me to wrap my head and structure of my movie to do it about people that he touched their hearts and minds and change their lives. Because even today, we're talking about his actions, not about his words. Today was just in Vatican statement that his Pope Mobile gonna be transferred into some kind of type of it's not an ambulance, but the specific thing that will help the kids in Gaza. Now, what is also interesting, I started my journey in 2013-14 when I filmed a movie about Ukraine. In 22, I was one of the first people who left US into Ukraine, into literally full-scale invasion, and started to film my second movie about Ukraine, which was screened twice in Vatican in the presence of Pope, which never happens before.
No, he doesn't like. I remember because I went to Rome when we remastered the film Romero. Paulus Productions had produced the film Romero with Raul Julia in 1989. And when Romero was canonized, we remastered the film, and I was able to give a copy to the Pope. But I was told by many, many people, he really doesn't like to watch movies that much, so he's probably not going to watch it. So the fact that you got him to watch two of your movies is great.
It's interesting because we always say in the presence of the Pope, but he was in the audience, in the presence in my movies. He watched it with the audience. He watched twice Freedom on Fire. We hosted this in Vatican, which was remarkable, actually. In the same synod hall where today Cardinals discussing the future of the church. So we were having a screening twice in a papal hall. And actually, if you guys want, I can give you a video where we were summarizing the last screening between two of us. In his presence, he's talking about Ukraine, about all what's happening. But going back to the children and to his gift today, it's interesting because my last movie that the world still haven't seen, that I just finished this year, was about children, about Ukrainian children, about suffering. And literally, he is in this movie as well. In my new movie about children, he is there. He is
Wow.
present because he hosted children from Ukraine, from Gaza, not one time in Vatican, and it's all there in this movie.
Can you talk about how you got to know him behind the scenes? Because you must have spent a good amount of time together. So, what was he like just, when the cameras were off and it was casual downtime? What's something maybe we don't know about him that you do because you became friends?
I think for all of us, it's hard to imagine him as just a humble, simple person. I was in a seated interview that never been broadcasted in 2020, and with EWTN, by the way. They never broadcasted this interview. It was 5 days before the premiere in 2020, middle of pandemic. And they asked me the same question. And I said, you know what? For you guys, you're seeing him as the Pope. I looked at him as the human being. And it's helped me to understand him much easier because the level of communication was different. You know what? As much as you want to give respect, and when you finish in some meeting with him or some time, and you allowing him to leave the room first, no, he giving you respect to leave the room first. He will go to switch the lights, and then he will be waving you until you will leave the space or building or something. It's him. He pays you respect. And there is the simplicity in his life. I've been in his apartment literally in the last couple of years every month. And it's, again, it's a human being who was simple, humble, who was caring for every other human being. And I guess that's what captivated my heart. That's why till today I'm still trying to process this, because even being the last 3+ hours by his casket in the Vatican, it was tough for me to accept the fact that yes, he is in a state, he's laying here, and it's not the same life, smiling friend, father, brother, mentor, teacher, same person that I used to have. It was still difficult for me to process everything, and I still, I guess, still trying to process this. Um, he he didn't like to talk about things that he does. For example,
Mm.
that's his simplicity, humility. He does things, and he prefer not to talk about them. He did a lot behind the scenes for the world. What I showed in the movie, it's nothing compared to like situations that he did. Since Ukraine today is still in headlines, and I've been helping in all kind of things behind the scenes. They arranged the exchange of of the population that was in the prison, the POVs, the soldiers. They helped to bring kids back. And you know what? And every time when you're asking him why you don't want to say something, he's like, Evgeny, he wants to do something, do it in the silence, because miracles happens in silence.
Mm.
It's
Nice.
his sentence. And it's interesting to see this simplicity and this humbleness. Now, we just saw how he was one of the popes who literally embraced everyone coming to the church. And you know what? No wonder when I was next to his casket, I saw so many young people, literally younger generation who was coming to pay tribute to. And just my hope that the next successor, he will be very complimenting towards what Francis did and still welcoming everybody, because church needs this ability to welcome everyone and not put labels and frames on the people.
How would you said he was like a mentor to you. Like, how did he mentor you? What was that like for you?
You will be laughing right now. Through the process of making movie, he was keeping distance. And later he explained to me why. He wanted me to be objective. And it's true. I was allowed to tackle anything and everything. That's why you can see brutally honest story of the sexual abuse in the movie, or LGBTQ thing, or other things. He wanted me to be objective. So he didn't wanted to have any control or any say. He gave me ability to be me, the independent filmmaker who came to tell the story. And when I came to him, oh, I will tell you interesting story, and then you will understand how he became truly mentor. In 2019, I'm second year into the making movie, and I'm pushing him literally to give finished interview, to finish the movie, and so and so. Second year, listen, for me it was like, wow, I'm going too long making this movie. It's too much time. When he's like, Evgeny, wait, it's not the time. It's not the time. Wait. And for me, it's like, come on. It's not a Vatican time. It's a Hollywood time. So time is money.
Yeah.
And then end of 2019, we transition in 2020, and the world dies. Pandemic. Cinemas closed. Life is literally in limbo. Everything is shut. I am falling into depression. And I remember one of the conversations, it was said to me, Evgeny. Now, Father Tom, remember, I'm a Jewish boy.
Yes.
The resurrection of the Christ will come, and you will see how to finish the movie. I remember how I freaked from that just here. And I remember the filming of 24th, 25th of March, the Urbe et Orbe, the horrifying scene, the many cameras on the colonnade that were positioned to film all these gigantic doomsday of the St. Peter Square. And I remember I still was lost. And then this statement, come on, don't worry, it will come time and you will see the entire movie. 14th of April, the resurrection of Christ comes, and did so entire movie in my head.
Wow.
Wow.
I was jumping here. I was jumping, screaming from happiness. I called to Vatican. I called to all my producers. I said, I know what we're doing. I know how to do it. And then I'm getting from him later. Evgeny, now tell me what I need to unembargo, what I need to record, what we are doing. So let's finish the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And then we did finish the movie. And on 30th of August 2020, I'm arriving to Vatican to see him. And I'm starting to talk immediately. And he's like, let me talk. Thank you for your patience. That were his first words. And I'm like, no, Holy Father, thank you for your patience with me. Because I'm the one who is anxious and impatient. He's like, no, you learn to be patient. It's good. So thank you for your patience. And now you must understand. Yes, you are the director, but it's your title. The director is there. And he's the one through us directs everything. You may have a plans, but it's him who through us directing everything. He's doing things through us. And I said, yes, it's true. I saw it. And since that, my approach to the things, my look at the things became completely different. And
Yeah.
it became this navigation to many things. I learned how to listen to him in terms of his vision, his recommendation, something that was completely different to me before.
Now, let me ask you a question. Like, how do you think, why is the world in mourning in addition to those of us in the church? Like, what is it? I mean, it feels like this is I mean, anytime a pope passes away, I think there's a certain degree where it's a world loss. But this feels a little different. Like, what's your take on that? Why did Francis resonate with so many people?
Do you remember how I started to continue the Maggie's story about watching the movie?
Yeah.
The moral authority of the world, the moral compass that was navigating us to the right direction. We lost this moral compass. Today, it's not just the Catholic world is orphan.
Hmm.
And I think I'm articulating this right because that's what I at least feel. And my friends who are not a Catholic population, they are feeling. Because we are orphans, because before the world started to go down into the darkness.
Yeah.
And he was with his white clothes, we can say. He was the light. He was this compass who was trying to navigate us out of this darkness that we were sinking. And it's not necessarily just Catholics. I said it at the beginning of the conversation that he was traveling not to the places that were just the Catholics. Rohingya refugees, Muslim population.
Yeah.
But he went there because he wanted to bring light, spotlight. He wanted to change their lives. He wanted to help them to voice themselves to the bigger world. And he did it. I interviewed them for the movie, same people, 8 months later. And you heard what they said. It's changed their lives. So he did impact it, lives of the people, no matter what religion they are. Look at the LGBTQ community that was embracing him. I saw by his casket people who belongs to the transgender, and they are coming to pay respect to the father. They felt orphans today. So he was the true bishop and the priest and the padre and the father to all of us, no matter the religious beliefs. I know so many people from the Jewish religion or Muslim religion who are today at loss. We're talking about Gaza.
Yeah.
Today he's present to children. Again, I was asked the other day how I, as a Jewish boy, feeling about the situation. And I said, no matter what, the mistake is on the government side of the Arab world, allowing the Hamas and all these terrorist groups to rule. But the suffering are human. And Pope Francis always said that it's a human suffering that hurts him. It's him who don't want to lose any more lives in this world.
Yeah.
When we're talking about pro-life, and I'm switching a little bit topic, but it will lead us back to your question. He is the true pro-life person because he cares for each life. When we had a big situation in the Vatican in 2020, and I was asked why the endorsement of civil unions was important to put in the movie and acceptance of the gay couple in a parish, I said, the effect of pro-life is not only about abortion, when the Catholic world literally caring about the little embryo that already alive in next 2 or 3 days from its creation, but it's also about children that can be thrown from the families because they not accepted their sexuality.
Yeah.
And he is trying to show us the path to accept everybody. Actually, it's also said in a doctrine of church, which sometimes misrepresented, in a doctrine it said that injustice, discrimination towards LGBTQ is literally not supposed to happen. So it means that the Pope actually not changed the doctrine. He's trying to make us to respect every human, no matter of the color of the skin, sexual preferences, or religious beliefs. Let's just put it simply that the official book of doctrine, doctrine of the Catholic Church, is actually saying that any unjust discrimination towards the people who have different sexual orientation is not supposed to happen. And that's what Pope Francis is trying to teach us, that we need to stop, put labels and frames on the people, and need to accept everybody. And I think that's what leading back to the answer to your question, that today the world in a big scale mourning a leader and a father.
I just was wondering, I don't want to make you sad because I know it's still fresh and you were good friends. What are you going to miss, or what are you already missing most about not having the Pope here to talk to or be with or spend time with?
I was in touch with him almost every week, and it's greatly missing. Last night, my son, he was going to sleep, and he was like, I'm going to write right now to Papa Francesco. And I'm like, I'm speechless, because he missing him. He was trying to force me to fly to Rome when he was in a hospital. And my son, who is named actually after, and who been close to Pope as well, he is literally today, he don't know what's happened, but he's still living that he is here, and that I am writing like every couple of days letters that he is responding. And I'm almost every month was in Vatican and bringing him some presents, mostly books. I have a lot of books that he gave to little Frankie. And it's probably will take me a long time to accept that there is no anymore this communication that the father and the son can share, and that's what it is.
Wait, did you name your son Frankie after Pope Francis?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
And he blessed him too. How many little
Yes.
kids can say, I've been blessed by the Pope? But I guess he was a family friend, right?
He was family, we can say.
Wow.
How would you say, like, I know a lot of times we talk about the great humanitarian gift that Pope Francis was. How would you say his relationship with God affected that?
You know what? I've heard from many people, he's very spiritual. He's prayed a lot. Often I'm still talking about him in the present, because for me, he's still here. And he devoted to prayer. He was seeking in the prayer sometimes answers. And it was interesting because sometimes I was asking him questions, and he was writing to me that he was praying a lot, and that's what the answer he found in the prayer. Or sometimes it was something else, but it was it was him very devoted to prayer. And the last years, always I was coming back with the candles. I think I still have even big candles with his logo on them. Something that will be no longer available in the Vatican. But I still have his personal candles a lot at home, because these candles, they like lasts a week at least. Most of these candles that he had at home in his residence in Santa Marta. And he knew that I'm praying it on Hebrew. And he loved actually when he blessing me and I blessing him on Hebrew. And it was interesting how he always like, please pray for me. I need the strength. I need the prayers of the world. And but his spirituality definitely affected me. As you can see, he changed my perspective from the first days after the movie. And it's affecting me today. It's changed me. It's also, I will tell you something, it was also therapeutic in certain way, the spirituality, because coming out of Syria, and I've been in the front line, and Maidan, where the shooting occurred in the last days of Maidan. You know what? I think PTSD that was affecting me through this first project was kind of going away with him being around me, bringing me to the spiritual world. Again, he not changed my religion, because sometimes people ask me, how come you not became Catholic? No, because he was respecting my Judaism and was more interested in our conversations when I am not biased towards him, towards specifically the Catholicism. But it was interesting also to learn Catholicism through him and experience certain things. So it was interesting process which helped me a lot mentally and emotionally and spiritually.
I liked in the movie how you told about when he was a little boy and what an influence his grandmother had on him and how she gave him the book on Saint Francis of Assisi. Do you think that his grandmother's influence had a lot to do with the way he thought about women and, their place in the world? Can you talk about that? What,
Yeah,
like
it's
if
true.
there,
It's absolutely
illustrations?
true. His grandmother was the biggest influencer for him, and I think even today we can see he wanted to be buried next to the mother of. So
Mhm.
I think his devotion, him seeing women as the key to many solutions. Listen, I witnessed what is interesting. I will take a step back to Argentina. In 2018, when I started to do a project, I went to Argentina where I met a lot of women whom were related to Bergoglio, to Jorge Maria Bergoglio, aka Pope Francis. And one of the first people whom I met was the head of the TV channel, belongs to Archdiocese. And she said to me that you can see me as the result of him endorsing women to the top positions. And then, of course, in the Vatican, we saw many others from the head of the Vatican museums to today we see head of Governaturato. So
Mhm.
he saw the aspect of women being a powerful players for the church.
And I think that's important too, because I think because ordination in the Catholic tradition is reserved only for men. I think one of the things, and he didn't change that doctrine, like maybe started some conversations so that people could talk about that a little bit more. But what he did was he found spaces for leadership within the church that didn't require those who were ordained. And really, I think he was kind of able to find some of those spaces that didn't exist before because the mentality was you got to be ordained to do this, you got to be ordained to do that. Um,
Yeah, but he also opened the institution. He opened the institution because remember, the same Paolo Ruffini, who is prefect of dicastery communication, who was since 2018, who replaced Dario Vigano, Monsignor Dario Vigano. He was one of the first lay people who entered into this position, and he tried to break. And it's usually high position for the cleric from the church.
mhm.
So he tried to literally bring interesting things into the church. You know, I will shock you probably with the statement that I will do right now. We had an interesting conversation one of the days. I always heard, oh, he's a progressive pope. And I asked him, I said, are you considering yourself progressive? And he said, no, 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 no. I am conservative, but I am revolutionary because I'm open to learn new things. I'm not afraid to do mistakes. Even Pope not supposed to say that because Pope is kind of not able to sin. And he said it in the movie. I am a sinner and I am confessing. So he is actually openly said, I am revolutionary because I'm not afraid to learn new things.
You're reminding me of something. I imagine what during your filmmaking, did you get to know Cardinal Casper at all? He was very influential in the popes and Pope Francis's early encyclical on mercy and creating the year of mercy. I went to a talk that he gave at Catholic University, and he said Pope Francis is not a liberal. Pope Francis is a radical, and that's how we need to think of him. So and I always thought, wow, that's a really great way because it kind of like breaks us free from some of those like left-right conversations that
You
our
know,
minds are so
I think
pre-formatted.
I think it's wrong to say him being radical, because radical usually
Hello?
experiencing in something that is very conservative, but not in
Hello?
something that is revolutionary. Because Pope was following traditions. Pope Francis was against abortion. I can say it openly right now because I had this conversation. People maybe don't want to hear that, but I will not lie this.
Mhm.
It's my conversation with him. And I will right now voice exactly the phrase what he said to me. He said, Evgeny, will you kill the human being? And I said, what do you mean? He said, but it's a human being. And he said, Evgeny, will you send a killer to kill human being? It's simple. I said, no. The same for me, abortion.
Mhm.
That's how he explains abortion to me.
In your film, Francesco, I keep coming back to it because it was so good. There was sort of an underlying theme that was very subtle, but I got the sense that he is incredibly or was incredibly brave. I mean, he, like we said, he's going to those war-torn areas where he even said they could have shot at me. You know, he's in that Pope mobile, not really, and it's all open. There's no bulletproof glass or anything. Um, did did he ever talk about that? That he just wasn't afraid? Because
I remember conversation about Iraq. I was before his trip to Iraq, which was very dangerous, and it was literally a dangerous mission. And I will tell you something. I remember this conversation, and I asked him. I said, "Are you sure you're going?" And you know what he said to me?
no.
I gave promise to the people.
Mm.
I don't want. Remember, Jean Paul canceled his trip to Iraq. He was the first pope who went. So Francis, despite all the danger, he went, and that's the beauty of this man. He, at the cost of his life, risking his life, he was doing things. He was for the people. Listen, for me, the fact that he's gone, it's one of the elements that he dedicated himself 100% to the 100%, 500% to the people, because he not was caring about his health. I I know this because in my situation with him, I multiple times in my letters I was trying to convince him, hey, you need to take care of your health. You need to take care. But he not had time. He literally not had time. He was dedicated to be this person who's serving people. And I remember how the speculation started. Oh, he because of his health. No,
Mm.
he was prepared to die being around people.
And
That's people's pope. That's going back to your statement. He
Mhm.
was people's pope. He died people's pope because he was heavily dedicated to serve people. He is the role model to every new priest who is going through ordination today.
Mhm.
He is the role model for every bishop who's serving people. He's literally a role model to every cardinal. How need to be serving his parish, his people. One thing I can tell you, if the conclave is already made its mind, then on the 8th you will have a pope. If the conclave is divided because of the peripheric side of the cardinals that Francis created in their desire to continue his way, and the conservative side, which was around Vatican, then anticipate to have 3-4 days of the conclave until it will get to the resolution. One thing I can tell you, Pope Francis, Jorge Maria Bergoglio, not was prepared to become a pope. He planned to retire. He
Yep.
had a room number 13 in a retirement home in Buenos Aires. Number 13 was his favorite number. And actually, he was elected on what day, Father Tom?
The 13th.
13th?
13th of 2013. Yes.
Oh yeah, 1313. That's right.
Yeah.
Who was who was the cardinal who came up to Mario Bergoglio, who had just been elected pope, who said, "Don't forget the poor." What was I forget his name?
Don't forget the poor, it's Holmes, who is reminded him, he was sitting next to him. It was Archbishop of San He was Archbishop of São Paulo, Brazil. The Archbishop Gomes, he was a cardinal, and he was created same day cardinal in February 21, 2001 by Jean Paul. They both were created cardinal. That's how I really know the Bergoglio.
And Father Tom told me, I did not know this, I've never heard this, that the Pope, before he was the Pope, arrived with a round trip ticket and expected to go back home to Argentina.
He looked at
And never
anything.
did.
Because the problem, Cardinal Bergoglio was really close in the votes in the conclave of 2005 when the Ratzinger was elected.
He was 4.
2005. Huh?
Was it 4 or 5?
No, 5, I think.
It was 5. Okay.
It was 5. When Jean Paul II died, 2005.
Yeah, no, you're right. It is 2005. Yes. I
So-
remember betting in a pool when I was working for Catholic Relief Services, and that's
Yes.
how I remember.
So-
And I worked for Catholic Relief Services in 2005. So that, yes, you're right.
2005, Bergoglio and Ratzinger were very close in the votes. And Bergoglio was thinking, okay, it's completely not making sense right now. If I lost before to Ratzinger, why should I will be elected? So he came with the completely set in his mind. He was preparing his homily. He had already prepared his homily that he coming back to Buenos Aires to do the Easter stuff. He was preparing it already. It was ready for him. So he literally came for a couple of days to do his last votes in the conclave, and he was planning to return. And that's why I know that it was an idea of retirement later on for him. And he was already considering the place, the room number 13, like everything he liked. And that was the biggest surprise. Humes, the Cardinal Humes, was sitting next to him. They were friends because Bergoglio did spend some time in Sao Paulo, and they were really friends. And listen, they became cardinals same day when Jean Paul II he made them cardinals. So it was a relationship. It was a friendship. And remember, Humes was the Franciscan.
And then and then one of the things that it's kind of struck me is that what did he ever share with you what it was like to never go home again when he left? Like when he got on that plane to go to the conclave and thought he was going to be back in 4 or 5, however many days later. What was it like for him to never go home again?
Argentina was always in his heart. He had always friends coming. He was in touch with the friends. I was last October. I saw his sister and her kids, the nephews of Bergoglio. I was in touch with all of them. And in fact, a few days ago, I was in touch with his younger sister, who is still alive, Maria Elena, and with the son, Jose Ignacio Bergoglio, who is a dear friend. He was always keeping Argentina in his heart. Mate was always his favorite drink. And alfajores was always on his table because he loved alfajores. So he was living Argentina, but in his own way, in his heart. And that's the beauty of this soul who left.
To your point about how he was the people's pope, do you think he hung on until Easter?
Strong will. Maggie, he had the strongest will.
Yeah.
And I think this strongest will helped him to go through this.
My son happened to be at the Vatican for Easter, and he saw him and he blessed the room and then left, said a prayer. And then he said the next day he was in the airport and he saw that he passed away, and he was just shocked because he said he seemed, so full of life. And even though, of course, he was elderly and ailing, but he said he just couldn't believe it. I think like a lot of us, Catholic or not.
I received a call and a text literally when the announcement came. Same time, I got a call from the Vatican, from the person who is very close to all of us. And he was crying. and it was around midnight here. And I remember that night, I not was able to sleep. I was crying. And then the couple of days it's were in disbelief, and I flew there, and again, the authorities and Cardinal Parolin, literally, they all were so nice, kn- knowing my relationship to the Holy Father. They authorized whenever I'm coming just to go and sit there by the casket as close person, and it was beautiful that despite my relationship direct with the Pope, that the Vatican, who were very different department, my relationship, they all gave me the ability and the privilege to be around him in his last hours while the casket was open.
Mm.
I personally not was able to hold it any further when the time came for the special secret ceremony of the closing of casket. I just left the basilica, and the next day, in tears, I just left Rome because acceptance of the fact that yes, he is the world leader, and he's the head of the church. And again, I can't divide two things. For me, he's still somebody who is deeply in my heart, who was close. Like I had hundreds and hundreds of personal letters and conversations every month, seeing him. It's different to accept this fact that somebody from your family you can touch, and you need to distance yourself because today he is no longer yours. He belongs to the world, and
Mm.
he is the Pope's. He is the people's Pope, and he belongs to the people. But the fact that I saw the youngest generation by his casket and these long lines and the Rome full of people making me feel so great that I knew this person, that I was by his side, that there is so many great things that were done together and serving people. And listen, I feel great being a part of this journey around him. And even the movie in 22, I was at OEC, the Catholic Educational Congress, organization of the Catholic education. There is international one,
Yep.
which is in Paris and in Vatican. And they had a congress. And I remember we did a screening for like thousands of people of the movie. And then we presented the curriculum for the teachers, which actually on the website and that's even the studies that were done with him, created by the teachers. And then I remember he enjoyed this, and he wrote a letter to the teachers about education, endorsing all this. And he was with all the teachers working on.
Nice.
Yeah. It's one of the things, we were talking about like how he was a model of priests and bishops and, of course for service. But I think one of the things that your film, really, really demonstrated, particularly with the situation in Chile is, I know when I got ordained, you just become that much more aware of how all the ways you fall short, and just being like, all right, I know I'm going to mess up. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when and how big. And again, like I think it's one of the great examples of Pope Francis was how, and you saw how, especially, when you're on that kind of level, you just have arrows coming at you from all different directions at all times. So sometimes it's like, okay, somebody says something and you're like, okay, I can't respond the exact correct way right at this moment. But I think so often in leadership, we're afraid to say I'm sorry, or we're afraid to say, hey, I got something wrong. And I think like you really showed that. And I know that's of the many lessons. I know that's one of the lessons I'm continuing to take for me during the
Remember,
not if, but when I mess up or fall short.
before I will disappear because I need to be at 2 o'clock somewhere, I want to say a very simple thing. He actually taught us that it's not about falling down. It's about not to stay down. You need to stand and continue the movement. He gave the great analogy to he loved football, San Lorenzo team. And I was witnessing how he hosted in Santa Marta the team, right, sports team from the prison, from the prisoners from Argentina. And he said to them, it's actually one of the extras. If you will pull today, you will see Los Spartanos segment, which I filmed in the prison and then in Santa Marta. You will see how he said it to them. In a football field, you're running, you're running, you're running, and you're falling sometimes. If you continue laying down, your team can lose. But if you will stand again and continue your movement, you guys will win. So it's not about fall down. It's about ability to come, stand, and continue and move. And another thing that I always saying to people today, and I'm saying to myself today, you need to learn from mistakes, but you also need to stop being a victim of your past.
Mm.
You need to learn how to be a hero of your future. And the choice is yours. So for me, yes, I lost the father and the mentor, but I'm learning today how to rebuild myself, learn what I learned, and execute this for the future, to be a hero of my future.
I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Evgeny, thank you so much. I get asked a lot of questions about Pope Francis, and I have my impressions, but I also know how much they fall short. And just to have somebody who knew him, who loved him directly, we all love him, but you had that special relationship, and just to share his impact, both inside and outside the church, I think it really helps us just ground our sense of loss, and just get a sense of where we hope to go as a future, as a church, but also just as a world, and I think many people, one of the reasons so many people are interested in this conclave is because, there's a sense that, we need moral leadership. We always need moral leadership. And we're so grateful for what Pope Francis was able to give us in that moral leadership, and his humility, and just being a human person. But I think his loss reminds us of how much we still need that, and how much we continue to pray for that.
And talking about humility, and talking about being able to say sorry even for the perpetrators, like it was in a Rohingya story, I want to remind you how in April, it was a spring of 21, I think. He hosted, I think it was April, he hosted leaders of South Sudan, the fighting leaders of South Sudan in Vatican for their retreat or something. And on the last day, in front of everybody, in this room, I saw Justin Volby. I saw many other leaders. He went on his knees. He was breathing heavily.
Mhm.
He kissed their feet of each of these leaders. And then it was a woman who was deeply shocked because he saw a respectful Pope kneeling in front of her and trying to kiss her feet. He asked for stopping this bloodshed. He asked this in the name of all people dying. And that's a Jesus gesture. That's a humble man gesture. That's not a Pope's gesture. That's a humble human being who's not afraid to kneel in front of the leaders and ask them in the name of humanity to stop the bloodshed. That's Pope Francis.
Amen. Amen.
What an honor to get to hear all your stories and meet you and talk to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
All right. Hope to see you soon, Evgeny.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.
That conversation was everything that I thought it was going to be, and even a little bit more. It's when we're reading like news articles, and of course that's how we're all learning about all this stuff.
Right.
But in order to have somebody who was so personally close to Pope Francis, and who understood him both as a world leader, as someone who wasn't even Catholic, and just the impact that he had, but also just as a human being, and like the real sense of loss that so many of us feel like when we lose a close friend or a family member.
Right.
That was
They
just
were
really
like
amazing.
family for sure. I mean,
Yeah.
they were like brothers. So if you want to find out more, we're going to do a deep dive into the conclave and the cardinals and so much more. So subscribe, share this podcast if you would like. We are here on YouTube, of course, and you can search for Candid Catholics wherever you get your podcasts. And we look forward to seeing you all this week and beyond.
All right. Look forward to it. Great. Thanks, everybody. God bless.